So we're in section 1.3 and we're measuring angles. So let me grab my protractor here. So there's my protractor. And again, I think the best kind of protractor is about this size. The big ones sometimes are a little harder to use, and the clear plastic ones tend to be a little easier to use than ones that you can't see through. And they also make little ones that are about this size, and they're made of metal. Just a little metal one like this, and those work really well. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. So we're just going to have some reminders about how we use a protractor, how we measure angles, and go from there. So if I have an angle like this, and I want to measure that angle, so I'm going to call my angle ABC, and I want the measure of angle ABC. The little m again means measure. We're trying to figure out the size of the angle. So I'm going to take my protractor, and any protractor you have is going to have right here in the middle, it's going to have a little cross, a little arrow, some have a little hole, some little mark right there in the middle. You have to put that mark right on the vertex of your angle. And you line up this side with this bottom line on your protractor. So I put the mark, whatever it is, a cross, an arrow, a hole, on the vertex of the angle, and then I'm just going to go over here. Because my angle is smaller than 90 degrees, I want to use the numbers on this. I want to use the small numbers. So I go 10, 20, 30. I'm here at 40. I'm between 40 and 50. I'm going to look up here, and it looks like I'm at about 46 degrees. I'm going to go at 40, and then I go to this scale, and it's a little more than 5, so I'm going to say it's about 46 degrees. So when my measure is less than 90 degrees, I use the small numbers. So I put the point, the cross, whatever, on the vertex, line the one side of the angle along here, and measure my angle along here. And if it's less than 90 degrees, I always have to have a number that's smaller than 90 degrees. And if my angle is not situated so this line is level, if my angle were drawn like so, the sides of my angles were like this, I would just take my protractor and rotate it around so the side lined up there. Set the cross right at the vertex. Put the one side along this side of the protractor, and then go up here and look at the measure of the angle. Looks like this angle is about 50 degrees. So I measured that at 50 degrees. If my angle is bigger than 90 degrees, my angle looks like this, and we'll call this angle ABC again. I'm just going to take my protractor, set the vertex there, line the edge there, and this time, since my angle is bigger than 90 degrees, I need to read the numbers that are bigger than 90 degrees. So I go over here, bigger than 90 degrees, and it looks like this angle is about 140 degrees. So I just set my cross, my point, whatever, on the angle there, read the numbers that are bigger than 90 degrees, and I get about 140. Questions on that? All right. Now, if our angles are pointed, if our angles don't open to the right, I want to do a couple of examples if our angles don't open to the right. If our angles open to the left, so if I have an angle like so, I do the same thing. Put the cross on the vertex, and I'm going to rotate so it lines up along the edge there. And now I'm going to read on this side, and I have to read the numbers. My angle's less than 90 degrees, so I'm going to read the small numbers here, and it looks like that angle is about 51 degrees. I read right here, just above 50, so about 51 degrees. So this angle is about 51 degrees. And since we're measuring the angles, they're not going to be perfect. You might not get, you might be a few degrees different than your neighbor. That's okay, because our protractors are not perfect, and it can be difficult to measure these angles. My angle is opening this way and is bigger than 90 degrees. So I'm here. Do the same thing. Put the cross on the vertex, line up my protractor, and now I'm going to read on the big number side. This is bigger than 90 degrees. I go to 130. It's not quite 135, so I'm going to say that that's about 134 degrees. Bigger than 130, not quite to the 135, so about 134 degrees. Again, just put the cross on the vertex, line up the edge of the protractor, and I'm measuring on the bigger than 90 degree side. Questions on that? All right, so on the homework, there are a couple of the angles that maybe they give you a really small angle, like that. And I put my protractor on there. And if your protractor doesn't have marks here on the inside, what you can do is just use your protractor as a straight edge. So I'm going to go around like so. You can lay your protractor there and just extend that line out. Just draw it further out, and that will make it easier to read. So now I see it extends clear back here, and I see that it's about 57 degrees. So if it's too small, you can just extend the sides out with the edge of your protractor. So this angle is about 57 degrees. All right, everybody good with measuring angles? Now what if the problem asks us to draw an angle? So let's say we want to draw a 68 degree angle. And this is one side of the angle. What are we going to do to draw that 68 degree angle? Anybody have an idea? Question?
So make your starting line, the dot line, and then use the type of median and find the 68 I guess back first. And then find 68 and just draw a line down.
Okay. So we're going to say this is my vertex. Put the compass on there, or the protractor, sorry, the same way that we did before. Line it up with that side. And then I'm going to come over here and find 60 and go to 65, 6, 7, 8 and put a mark here. So this is 60, and I went over over here to 68, put a mark there. Then you can take your protractor, use it as a straight edge between those 2 points. And then just draw a line from the vertex through that point. And there would be your 68-degree angle. So you're just setting your protractor on there as if you're measuring the angle, but instead of measuring it, you just mark the angle. So I just went here as if that's my vertex, and just made a mark out here at the 68-degree point. Any questions on drawing or measuring angles? So this is all that our homework has to do with today is measuring and drawing angles. Before we finish, I just wanted to say one thing. A protractor is just a kind of a ruler. So like we talked about the other day, if we change the scale, it doesn't change how big the angle is. It just changes the number that we give to that angle. And rather than measuring in inches or feet or meters, our ruler's curved. So most protractors measure in degrees. So a protractor is just a curved ruler, just another kind of ruler. That's really all we're doing is just another way of working with ruler. Oh, I forgot one thing. There's one other example I wanted to show you. I want to make sure you see this one. If you saw some of your problems might have an angle, they might give you an angle like this and have your protractor sitting on it like so. And they want to know how big that angle is. How would we figure it out if we were given a problem that looked like this? How could we figure out how big that angle was? Find the distance between the two rays. So find the distance between this one and this one. And on the protractor, we could count spaces like we did on the number line. Or what's another way we could do it here? Anybody have an idea? So what I'm going to do, we could count spaces. What I'm going to do is look at this side and say that this side is at about 120 degrees. And I'm going to look at this side and say it's at about 51 degrees. So I look where this one is and look where this one is. Now what can I do with those two numbers? Subtract. So find the bigger number, subtract the smaller number. 120 degrees minus 51 degrees, and I get, what do I get? 120 minus 51? I get 69 degrees. So, and I should be able to check, go here, set my protractor there, and if I measure my angle this way, I see that it's, when I measure it, it's about 70. So, what the reason I didn't do that first was you might have a problem on your homework or on a quiz or a test that has a protractor on there and says, from this information, tell me how big this angle is. So if we had the protractor sitting on there like this and that problem was printed that way, we would need to know how to figure out that angle from there. We weren't measuring it, but they gave it to us. Okay? All right. That's all we're talking about today.